Jonathan, thanks for joining me today, man.
Man, thanks for having me on. Super excited to get into whatever we end up talking about and hopefully bring some value to the people.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. And brother, it's been great to see your journey and your success from the outside looking in. At least to me, I can appreciate your focus and your work ethic and what you're trying to do. And obviously there's an appearance of success there, but I know that there's a journey behind that as well, right? So let's start there. What does that journey look like for you? Because I know it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You mentioned in your bio that you started with personal training and have switched to online nutrition and fitness coaching. What does that journey look like for you?
Yeah, man, it's been an interesting one. I know everybody has their own way of getting into online training and obviously their own journey. But for me, really it started out, I was playing college football, finishing up my time there and was like, man, what am I going to do? And I was like, man, I guess I'm just going to get my personal training certification, see what I can do with that. Just in the meantime, figuring out what I want to do. Because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, fell in love with that at a young age, just the self-help books and the things I was consuming, where it's really just urging me to do that. So I was like, okay, that's an easy in for me to call myself an entrepreneur, is to do personal training and hopefully one day build a business, right? So man, we were first 2 years doing in-person training while also building the online business, doing 30 to 40 sessions a week in person, as well as 20 to 30 online clients. So I was working, man, I don't even know how many hours. I didn't keep track of it, but I pretty much did nothing but work, but loved every second of it. And then in the past 9 months, I've transitioned solely to online coaching, and it's been a blessing to be able to do that. And number one, just like do what I love doing, which is making content and helping people understand health and fitness and get amazing results from a fat loss perspective, muscle growth, really just whatever they're trying to optimize for. So I love this stuff. It's been definitely not easy. And even on the outside looking in, it might look like I'm just balling. I wouldn't say that's the case. And I tell people, I say, I run my own business, and I use the term business very loosely because I would not consider it a business quite yet. I want to get to a point where, I have coaches under me. I'm able to focus on marketing and content creation, doing all this stuff that I just like have a real love for, and then be able to have those coaches helping people get amazing results. But man, it's a journey, but man, we're learning every day. Something new every week has come up where it's like fighting fire, but overcoming and just continuing to grow, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. A lot of times you hear the saying, solopreneurship versus entrepreneurship, and you kind of have to start out in that solo world a lot of times. And it sounds like maybe that's where you are, which means you have to wear a lot of hats, right? Like you have to do it all. What do you see, coming down the pipeline for you as you try to transition to more of that entrepreneur mindset? Where are you kind of taking your next step to?
Yeah, I think the next step for me is obviously in terms of building a team is getting on some coaches in the future, and my goal is to be able to like offload the clients to my coaches, and we have a system for coaching, and obviously I want to be able to have a really solid system that I've created to get amazing results. But I love marketing, I love content creation. And my goal for the next step would be to get coaches so I can honestly do less coaching of, clients, and then be able to move into a lot of the marketing and the strategy behind getting more clients. Because honestly, man, like I mentioned, at a young age, I fell into self-help and things through business. And I always tell people the story. I was in high school and I was hopping on like Grant Cardone real estate, like live webinars that he was having, and just had no idea what I was doing, but I was like wanting to learn stuff, right? So even now, looking into the future, I'm like, man, I want to be able to wear the hat of, a business owner where I'm thinking strategy and marketing and the stuff that comes with that, and less of the actual like implementation of the coaching that we're selling, right? So that would be the long-term goal. Next 5-10 years, and I use long-term loosely because obviously 5 to 10 years on the grand scheme of things is not very long. But man, yeah, obviously, like I said, hiring some coaches would be that next step to be able to get to that point. But I love the marketing and the ideas of trying to get in more people into our client base and to be able to help more people.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Grant Cardone. He's, kind of a competitor of ours to some degree. I mean, much larger than what we are in the real estate space, but to some degree does what we do. And whatever your opinions are about Grant and his style, one thing he is absolutely incredible at is the content creation. And I love that you're
Absolutely.
passionate about that as well. How important is that in today's world, man? Like, you hear it all the time that you've got to build this personal brand and that the rules for marketing, the handbook is out the door. What does that mean to you and what are you focused on that side?
Yeah, it's something where I've learned a lot in the past 2 years about content creation and what it actually means to build a brand. Because I started making content, man, 4 years ago when I was in college playing football. I didn't do it trying to get a big following. I just wanted to share my training, share the nutrition stuff I was learning to become a better athlete. And I've been posting 1 to 2 times every day for 4 years now. And we've been in the process of just learning. And what I've learned over the last 2 years is that when it comes to building a personal brand, and I'm still working on this, it's so much about sharing who you are so people can connect to you, right? And then on the other side of that, obviously from like a marketing and a sales perspective, people want to buy from people they like. I mean, that's a pretty standard understanding, and something I've had to work through and continue to progress on is that connection through content, which is not an easy thing to do, especially with today's society, short term span of mind. Like people, it's hard to build a connection in 20, 30 seconds on a reel. It's hard to build connections when people are not even able to read your entire caption, or just looking at a picture, liking it, and going to the next thing, right? So that's where these podcasts come in to allow to build that relationship with somebody, and then being able to have the person on the other end understand who's talking, where that person comes from, and then have some connection point there. And what I can say is from my experience with getting clients, the majority of my clients have come through online. And I've got a lot of clients in person as well, just meeting people in the community, different connections and affiliates and things like that. But most of my clients come from online. And when I talk to those people, I'm like, what got you to listen to what I was saying and what wanted you to come to me? It's like, I just resonated with your message. I resonated with the way that you promote what you're doing. And I think like even you're talking about Grant Cardone, and you and your business differ in the way that you do some things. That's your personal brand, right? And somebody's going to resonate with him. Somebody's going to resonate with you. And that's the beauty of, I think, business, and the beauty of marketing is who can build that connection with that person on the other side and be able to obviously attain them as a client, but more importantly help them in whatever thing they're trying to be successful in. So man, it's so important. And obviously, like I said, I'm learning. I got a social media coach right now. I hired at the new year because I'm like, this is something I want to lean into and actually be able to grow in 2024. So it's a big focus for me as well this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the verbiage there, connection through content. And one of the trends, I guess, over the last couple of podcast episodes that I've done is authenticity. And when you think about kind of your progression through your career, right, starting in one-on-one personal training, you're face to face. There's a lot of there's a lot more connection there when you're in the same room with someone, right? You've kind of gravitated towards the online coaching. How do you make sure that authenticity comes through as you change your business model?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been an interesting path because, like you said, that in person coaching is really focused on just being with the person and learning about their life. Like, I can tell you so many things about my in person clients that I had, from their relationships to their families to how their parents treated them to like all these things, right? So I learned so much about them, and you don't get that as much when you have an online coaching business. And I know some coaching businesses don't necessarily have that connection point as streamlined, or better said, they don't have a way to build that connection. And one of the fundamental things that I make sure that I am always intentional about is getting on calls with my clients, not putting a time cap on those calls, being able to just listen to them ask them like, how's life? What's going on? Learn about this person. And then obviously you get into some other things, and this is new for my coaching as well, is like a community portal and having a place where your clients can go build community with other people and feel open to share their struggles, and me being able to share my struggles so they feel like they're not, set apart, and that their struggles are not just for them, that I struggle as well, So I think a big part of it is just having different avenues to be able to build that. And then also as a coach, taking the time to step away from just like recording a screen recording, talking to the client and actually talking to them, like that's where it gets hard when you do get a lot of clients. If you get 50, 60, 70, 100 clients, that gets hard, right? To have that personal connection. And I think just from a business perspective, obviously, more numbers is more money, but that's not always better. I don't think that's always going to serve the clients the best. And I don't think that's always going to serve you the best. So I think for me, a lot of it is just intentionality with always reaching out, making sure we're getting on calls often, and then having that avenue for community as well.
Yeah, man. I've always said that if your goal is to just know the most about your clients, that, be a barber or a hairdresser, because it seems like folks always open up in those situations. I think personal training is in line with that as well. It just seems like you get into that one-on-one situation, and folks just tend to open up. So I can only imagine the things that you have learned about your clients over the years. I do want to kind of dive into, you brought up community and stepping away, because those are two important points. Because the whole point of this podcast is that there are four pillars: business, personal finances, investing, and health and wellness. And the intersection of those four pillars, and that there's struggle in each of those, and there's successes in each of those, and they relate to each other. I think what gets difficult sometimes, at least for me, is that when you're in the nitty gritty and you're in, doing 100 lessons a week or whatever it might be, you kind of find it difficult to step away to learn and grow yourself, so that you're not just helping your clients today, but it gets more difficult to help them tomorrow as well. How important is that for you to kind of step away and learn yourself versus just being in the grind every day?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely been a learning experience as well. Because what I can tell you is when I first got into coaching and first was trying to build that client base, it was a reality that I could spend a lot of time educating. I could spend a lot of time investing in myself to be able to help my clients. And as you get more clients, and I know a lot of coaches will resonate with this, it just gets harder. And it's not that you don't want to do it either. It's that you're tired, you're fatigued from, coaching all day, or being able to provide that service to your client. And then on the other end of it, that it's something you need to do. And I think a lot of coaches fall into the trap of not continuing to educate. And I think for me, the easiest way to continue to find ways to grow in my knowledge is to force it. And the way that I like to do that is to, number one, spend money on things, because that forces you to it actually urges you to step into that, whatever you're doing, right? So for me as a fitness professional, whether that's a nutrition certification or whether that's going to some type of course or something, I always want to be investing in me, and I want to be putting something on the line, right? Because if I don't personally believe that you're going to be fully bought in if there's not something on the line. So for me, I think that's a part of it. And then also, I think another part of it as well is using your coaching as an opportunity to learn. I mean, something that I've taken away from mentors and taken away from people that I'm friends with that have, big businesses and have become great coaches, is that they're constantly viewing their client calls and their check-ins as an opportunity to learn, because there's so much to learn through the process of coaching. And if you're actually intentional about not just going through the motions of trying to help somebody, but actually trying to help them and trying to solve problems, you're going to figure out how to solve better problems and harder problems over time. And I think for me, that was crucial for me to understand from a mentor of mine talking to me about that. It's just like, learn through the process of coaching. That's where you're going to gain the most knowledge. And that's where, honestly, for me, I think that was the beauty of in-person coaching, is that I was just thrown into the fire and I just had to learn. And I learned so much about human movement and what exercise to pick and all these things through just actually coaching. So I think the actual act of doing something is the best way to learn. And then I think investing in something and putting something on the line is going to force you to learn and continue to grow in that area, whatever that may be.
Yeah, you just dropped so many little tidbits of knowledge there, and I'm going to try to pick apart each one of them without forgetting, but I know I will. So, when we go back for episode 2, we'll try to catch on the rest of them. Let's start with coaching as a way to learn. And this was actually something that was on my mind this morning pre-podcast, and that everything that you do, there should be an aspect of service there, right? Like we'll get into here in a second this whole idea of wellness as a business strategy, and you have to take care of yourself before you can help others, that sort of thing. And it is important to focus on putting yourself in the right position and taking care of yourself. But in terms of thinking of coaching as a way to learn, how does that relate to kind of a service aspect, and how is that important in your life?
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes down to, coaching and using it as an opportunity to learn it and being able to serve people, I think the first thing I always think about is when I'm, number one, when I'm coaching people, like, what am I getting out of this, connection with this person, and what can I actually pull from this person that I may not, understand? I think a lot of people, specifically coaches or people who feel like they're superior in some area. And I think this is easy to do if you're a coach, like somebody's coming to you for help, and it does give you a level of authority in whatever specific thing that they're coming to you for. But for me personally, I'm like, what can I learn from this person? Because this person has a lot of things to teach me, whether they're younger than me or older than me. It doesn't matter. I can learn from this person, and I think the knowledge that you gain from being open and letting your ego down and actually listening and trying to learn from somebody else, and specifically a client, that allows you to serve them better, but also allows you to serve your future clients better who've been in the scenarios that person. I mean, what you learn through that coaching connection. I think just when it comes down to it, the learning process of coaching, it comes down to listening. It comes down to being open for criticism, asking for criticism, and asking for how you can improve. And for me, that's something I do on a quarterly basis is ask my clients, like, how can I serve you better? And I think just being vulnerable and being okay with people that you're serving to give you some criticism is an avenue for you to grow in ways that you couldn't imagine. Obviously, from a business perspective, like, your clients are the best people to tell you where you're falling short. They're the best people to tell you where you can improve. And I think we can talk about marketing, we can talk about running ads and all that stuff to get more clients. But if your product's not amazing, you're not going to get more clients, right? And the best way to make an amazing product is to listen to the people that are in the product and who are using it, and gain that knowledge from them. So there's so many different things within that connection and ways to learn that I don't think everybody takes full advantage of in a coaching relationship in their businesses as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's this constant feedback loop that's going on, right? And you're right. You can focus on your marketing, you can focus on content creation, you can focus on all these aspects. But if you're not listening to the feedback from your customers, then your chances of improving are slim, right? Because they are the ones that know what that product looks like. Same goes with employees, right? Like your employee, there's so much that you can learn if you have employees. There's so much that you can learn from each of them. It doesn't matter how much experience they have. If they've been in the business for 40 years, if they've been in the business for 3 days, like there's just so much knowledge and perspective that can be learned by just opening your ears and listening to those around you. And that's how we grow. I do want to kind of dive into, you said, you know, not having this mindset of more clients equals more money, because that's, again, another trend that I'm seeing on the podcast episodes that I've been doing. And we've had, multiple different industries on the podcast so far, health and wellness, insurance, marketing. Each of them have brought that up to some degree. And if I go back, 10, 15 years in my life, it was just this whole like idea of grind, 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 more equals better. Where do you think that changed, and how do you kind of incorporate that into your life of this whole idea of more isn't necessarily better?
Yeah, man. Honestly, when I think of where did that change, I think the obvious answer for me is when I got in a relationship with my now wife. Is that I just had to step away from a lot of the things that I was spending all my free time doing. Right. So, like I said, I was, educating a ton in my free time. Like pretty much all I did was educate and coach. And I think getting into a relationship and recognizing like I have to be intentional with this person in order for this relationship to prosper. And I'm still working on that, obviously, but I think that was the big shift for me. Obviously, I'm 24, so I got in to a relationship about a year and a half ago. We got married quick, but I learned so much in the process at a young age of, you can spend all your time doing these things and just trying to make more money, get more clients, but when you do that, something else is gonna be taken away, right? You can't put all of your effort into one thing and not expect other things to fall off. And obviously, when it comes down to it, you have to be able to recognize like, okay, what do you want more of in this moment, in this point in time? What is more actually, when is more actually better, in what area are you trying to focus on? Because a lot of people are just solely focused on one area. And you can see this a lot in business people who have great businesses. They're not great at relationships because they're so bought in on the business, or they're so focused on growth that they have a hard time in relationships, right? So I think it's a big point is identifying where you want to prosper, and then figuring out how can you find ways to prosper in all these areas, and defining that and understanding, like for me in my business, let's just say from a revenue perspective, like what am I okay with making, and just not having to push to make more money, and investing in my relationship for a period of time. And identifying, what are your expectations? What areas do you want to really prosper in? And what are you willing to give up in order to prosper in that? And that's even something I talk about for my clients. Like if you're wanting to lose fat, you're going to have to step away from partying because that's going to make it hard to lose fat. If you want to lose fat, you're going to have to spend more time exercising and focus on your diet. You're not going to be able to have as much free time because you were spending 1 hour doing this fun thing. Well, we need to go work out with your 1 hour you have today. So I think it's a lot of prioritization and understanding what's the goal at hand. What is the main thing? Keep that main thing the main thing right now. And then, dive into that. And then in the future, once you achieve some level of success in that thing, then you can reassess and say, okay, where do I need to put my head down at this moment? But man, there's so many different directions you can go with just identifying, just being successful in life. And obviously it's not an easy thing, man. Life is crazy. Life is hard. And I'm learning that even more as a married man, and understanding like responsibilities and how I can show up for my wife and how I can show up for my clients and my family. And it's not an easy thing. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, everything comes at a cost. And, the first thing that I always recommend, and I try to do myself, is when I want something, is the effort that I'm going to put in, or the idea of achievement that I'm going to get from attaining that, worth what I'm going to have to give up to get it, right? Like you said, if you want to, lose weight, is the social aspect that you have to give up from partying worth it to you? And that's really kind of where you have to start. I love that you brought up your wife, because I think that circles back to community, which was the other point that I wanted to kind of dive into earlier, and I kind of skipped right past it. How important is it to have that community built around you? Your wife, your friends, your mentors, whatever it may be. How important is that in terms of achieving those goals? And let's kind of focus in on the weight loss or the nutrition aspect here.
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes down to community, man, it's so crucial in many areas, right? So, I mean, first things first, when it comes down to it, I think you need community to have some people to lean on in the hard times, because it's gonna get hard at some point. And I truly believe that if you have people around you who are like minded, who want to see you grow and succeed, in those hard times, they're going to help you overcome it. They're going to be able to talk you off the cliff. They're going to be able to walk you through what you might not see in a moment of stress. Because it is hard when you are doing something hard and times get hard to actually see the full thing, right? And I think like taking a step back, widening your vision is hard to do a lot of times. But when you have people around you who can do that and give you advice, that's crucial. And I always think about obviously my wife, but my men's group that I'm a part of is a blessing to me because I can just share the things that I'm struggling with, share the things that I want, and share where I'm at right now, and they can just give me insight on like, man, this is what I would do. This is my recommendation for you, and I think that is just that there's so much value in having people to speak into you and to not only encourage you but also direct you, and I think that's like the first layer of having community. Now, like another layer, like you're talking when it comes to fat loss or when it comes to your health goals, and obviously we met through HW, and this really makes me think of HW because the community there is just so close. Everybody feels like family, and also like everybody's so encouraging. And I think when you have a community that that you can show up to, and even if we're doing a workout that freaking sucks, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be so fun because we have people there that are going to cheer us on. Even if we know that we're not, doing a great job with our diet, or if we're coming in a little bit more overweight, they're not going to pick us apart because they're glad to see us there. And I think community, a good community, let me say that, is a group of people who are going to build you up, even if you are not quote unquote worthy of feeling built up in that moment. And I think just thinking about fat loss and thinking about having people to lean on in the hard times, like I mentioned, and actually looking forward to having a connection and conversation with can be the thing that allows you to get through that hard time, to get through and push on and get the results that you want to get. So I think there's just a lot to be said about being around people that you, number one, like and enjoy, but also people that encourage you, and that you can actually find some insight through and direction, because we can't do it alone. I tell people that all the time. Like, there's people that want you to succeed. If you feel like you're alone, you got to find a community, because there are people that want you to succeed. I promise. I want you to succeed. So I promise you there's more people than just me who want to see you succeed in life. So finding that community is so crucial.
Yeah, amen. I love that you brought up leaning in on hard times to the people around you. I've been pretty straightforward. This is not my thing, right? Like getting on a podcast, starting something like this is not my thing. And there's feelings and emotions that come with getting outside of your comfort zone, and imposter syndromes, and all these fear, right? That surround this. And I've been really able to lean into my soon to be wife, my fiance, and she just continues to build me up through that. And you go on walk with friends on Sundays, and they continue to build me up through that, and that's been so important. And I haven't reached my goal yet. I want to see how long this continues. Goal number 1 is hit 20 episodes, and this is number 9. But like, without them, I'm not here. I'm not at number 9. If I would have done this 5 years ago, I would have done 2 episodes and been done. Like, this is so much work, and never would have done it. So it is important. And then the other side of that too is that it just grounds you in your successes, right? Like, you think about HW, for instance, since that's where we met, and you go in and you do this really hard workout and it goes really well, but then that community just kind of grounds you in a way that, leads you to not maybe lean into pride and other feelings that could work against you in the future, which I think is really important. So switching gears here just a little bit, I brought up earlier, the whole idea that wellness is a business strategy. And I know I stole this from someone, so I'm sure, you all have heard this before, but there is that aspect where if you take care of yourself and your health, then it allows you to show up as the best version of yourself in life, as a parent, as a spouse, as a business owner. You're the third person in the health and wellness space that I've had on this podcast. And like I said, it's the first 10 episodes because I think it's that important. Why is health and wellness a business strategy to you?
Yeah, man. I think it really does just come back to what being healthy and feeling good does for your life. And this is something that I promote a ton on my social media is finding ways to, not just see our fitness and our nutrition and our health as its, own thing, but being able to connect it to other things. And I talk about my faith a lot in that connection, because I think when we understand that the way that we treat our bodies, the way that we show up for ourselves is going to help us grow in these other areas. It becomes a lot easier for us to show up for ourselves. And like I said, with my faith, for example, I'm a Christian, and a lot of my clients are in that same position as well. They believe the same as me. And something I talk about with them is like, okay, can you be disciplined in your nutrition and your fitness? If so, you're probably going to be more disciplined in your prayer, in reading your Bible. Same goes for your business. If you can be disciplined in showing up in your nutrition and your training, the reality is you're probably going to be able to do the little things that are going to allow you to be successful in your business or your position at work, right? And I think we forget a lot of the times that our health and our fitness and our wellness is a pretty good indicator of how disciplined we are, how consistent we are, how well we can focus on the things that need to be focused on, how well we can create a plan, how well we can follow through with a plan. I think there's so many connection points there. And that's not to say you can't be successful in other areas of your life if you're not fit. I mean, you see Warren Buffett, he's the richest guy, ever. He drinks Diet Coke all day long. But understanding like you are going to find some type of benefit in those other areas through your health and your fitness and your wellness, right? And I think the beauty of that is the discipline and the consistency that is required in order to be successful as a healthy individual. So that's where I always go to when I think about that connection point, and that's a big selling point for me to other people about coaching is like I don't want to just help you lose fat and get abs. Like that's not what it's about. It's about growing as a person. It's about becoming better in every area of your life. And I think if more people would attach their health and their wellness to other areas of their life that they want to succeed, and they would see how that helps build them up in all areas, it would be a lot easier to follow through with the things they say they want to do, and would honestly, I think, change their lives if they really step into it.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of really good points there. First, I think we talked service earlier in terms of everything that you do having an aspect of service for others, but there's also the whole aspect of service for yourself. And you kind of touched on that where, it's not just about losing the weight and, having abs or whatever, however you want to frame it in your own mind. It's also about like, how can I do this really hard thing to then show up for myself in another way? And so I wanted to touch on that first of all, and then second of all, you mentioned because one of the main rebuttals when you hear of this whole like wellness as a business strategy is like, well, look at Elon Musk, look at Warren Buffett, look at whoever. And I think it's important, or what gets lost in that rebuttal is that you're not Warren Buffett, and he is just an absolute unique individual that has had an incredible amount of success because of that uniqueness, and that what we are saying here is for the masses, right? And the best way to set yourself up for success is through doing these principles or these philosophies that can create success no matter what area of your life that you try to apply it to, right? Like if you want to be successful in business and you want to be successful in family life and you want to be successful in your health life, discipline has got to be like the foundation of that, right? And that's
Yep.
going to correlate no matter where you try to put it. So I wanted to highlight that as well. And then lastly, you brought up your faith, and it's not something that gets talked about a ton in the business world, but I'm trying to keep this podcast real and authentic, and it's important in my life as well. How has your faith been important to you in this business journey and help you serve your clients?
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of to hit on the point of the discipline for a second, something I wanted to bring up that just came to mind is a practice that I really try to promote to my clients, and something that I fell into at a young age was the practice of stoicism, right? And I think understanding that we don't control circumstances, but we can control the way that we look at the circumstances and the way that we show up. And as you mentioned, like Elon Musk, he's a different guy. Warren Buffett, they're different, right? Like I'm listening to Elon Musk's book right now, and the dude is insane. He just works like nobody's ever worked, right? But for the average person, we need to find ways in which we can solidify ourselves in just the right mindset, right? That's going to allow us to move forward in our life. And I think for most people, a lot of it is understanding that we don't have control over circumstances. The only thing we have control over is how we react, how we show up. And I always try to help people understand, like, it's the same thing in your nutrition and your training as it is in your relationships and your business. If you're going through something and the circumstances aren't exactly how you want it to be, and you use that as an excuse, how is that serving you? Like, it's not serving you at all, right? Now, on the other side of the spectrum, if you're the person who has the worst circumstances and you look at it and you say, you know what, this is how it is, I'm just going to show up and I'm going to do what's required. That person is going to move forward more than the other. That's just the reality of it. And I think that's the beauty of fitness and wellness, is that you can understand that, you know what, my planning wasn't good this week. I had something come up at work and they had pizza, but guess what? The way that I respond is that I'm not going to have the pizza. I'm not going to fall into the temptations just because I didn't plan well. I'm going to allow my thoughts and my actions to be based off of what I identify as rather than the circumstances, right? And I think that's the beauty of the discipline and the mindset of being healthy and using that wellness as a business strategy like you mentioned, man. So love that. But man, when it comes to my faith, man, it's everything to me. And I would say I was so blessed with amazing parents who brought me up in the church. And for everybody listening, if you're not a Christian, I hope you can listen to this and not think I'm some Christian who's here that's like a bigot who's trying to like say I'm better than you, because that's not the case at all. I think it's important to note, like, we're all sinners. We all fall short. That's the reality. I'm so far from perfect. And if you don't believe what I believe, that's okay. I hope one day you do. But in the same lens, I think you need something that's higher than you to help you find some purpose in this life. And I brought this up to my buddy the other day. I'm like, man, honestly, I don't know how a lot of people deal with hard times if they don't have a relationship with God. And I say that because where I go when I'm struggling, where I go when I'm upset, where I go when I am not feeling like doing the things that I need to do is, God, will you please help me right now? Like, I don't want to do this thing. I am in a terrible mindset right now. Can you help me understand what I need to do? I mean, guide me, direct me. And then more importantly, just give me an attitude of gratitude. Help me to see the bigger picture. And like I said, I don't know exactly how a lot of people who don't have a faith are able to do that. They have their own strategies. But for me, I think that is the fundamental beauty of my faith. Obviously, eternity is one conversation. But for me in my day to day, it's just relying on something higher than me to help me get through the hard times, to help me get through the good times and appreciate what I have. And to see that I didn't bring everything to me. I'm not the king of my life. I'm not the one who made everything happen. And I think it drops your ego. It forces you to see things a little bit more clearly from a wider lens. And for me, it allows me to be able to push through hard times because I know no matter if it works, if it doesn't work, it's what God had planned for me. I'm either going to learn or I'm going to succeed in it. And that's just how it is. So I think it brings a clarity of mind for me. And it just honestly allows me to do everything that I do in my life and be able to have just a good perspective on things.
Yeah, and I think those two perspectives maybe relate to each other more than what we realize, right? Like you're talking about things happening to you in life without you having any control over it, and it matters how you react. It reminds me of one of my grandfather's favorite quotes, which he credits to Henry Ford because he's a car guy. I don't know who it was, but life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then thinking of that in terms of this belief in a higher power, and you don't have to believe what Jonathan and I believe, but like again, those principles that we were talking about earlier that lead to successes in all areas of life, those have been important for us. And the more that you can use those principles with, even if you don't believe, use those principles, I think the more likely, you're going to show up and, you know, get your way, earn your way to success. Again, that whole attitude of gratitude thing, like the more that you have that mindset, the more that you have this service mindset, the more likely that, good things are going to happen to you. I had a conversation with one of my mentors the other day. It'll be a podcast episode as well. It's like, and he doesn't believe what I believe, but he believes that if you put good vibrations out into the world, that it's going to come back to you in a large way. And, I think those all relate to each other. It's just like how we define it and, what we
Yeah,
believe. So it's all important and a great perspective. What are some
absolutely, man.
other principles or philosophies that you follow within your coaching world that would equate to success in business as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I always say this, and this is also like a biblical principle, but I didn't come to be served, but I came to serve, right? I think a lot of people are always looking for how people can show up for them and what people can do for them. And I think for me, I always try to bring it back to my goal and my purpose on this earth isn't for me to be served by everybody. My purpose is to serve other people, to help other people. And I think that is what's going to allow you to find purpose and what's going to allow you to wake up in the morning, be excited about what you're doing, is knowing that you're helping somebody else. I think that's the fundamental principle that allows me to show up and be excited about what I'm doing. And then beyond that, principles of business and life that I think I always turn back to and always look at is having relationships and cultivating those relationships, because that's something I'm actually not amazing at. Because I can just put my head down and focus on my work. I can put my head down and just do things that need to be done, and I can not focus on other people. But something that I've had to solidify is that relationships are important to me. And I think relationships are just the fundamental thing that are going to allow us to not only have community, but also find success in our life, right? I mean, shake more hands, have more business, right? Like that's a common thought, but I think there's a lot of reality in that, is that when you just cultivate relationships, when you are intentional with, taking time out of your day to talk to people and to understand where they're at and to give some insight, or maybe not give insight, maybe just listen. I think that is something that's just there's not enough to be said about that. Like I said, I'm not amazing at that. I am trying to work on that myself because I'm not a words person. I don't I'm give a bunch of words to people. I don't need to receive a bunch of words. So that's something I have to work on and cultivate. And I think that is a fundamental thing that people need to focus on, man. And then beyond that, man, like I said, just the mindset of gratitude is always the thing that allows me to be happy. And I used to struggle with a lot of cynicism and being in a state where I was just not optimistic, and it was miserable. I would complain a lot. I would be in a position where something would happen to me and I'd be like, oh, why is it me? Why does this always happen to me? Right. And what I found over time was the more that I recognized that things are not happening to me, but they're happening for me. My life just got happy, man. Like I can't tell you, even through the hard times, I can look and be like, you know what? I lost a client. Well, I learned something from that. I didn't do something good enough to sustain that relationship, right? Or man, this happened to me. Well, what can I learn from it? And that alone is like just so uplifting, and will bring a joy to your life that allows you to, just be grateful for the day and not go to work and be sad and upset, but be happy that you have a job, be happy that you get to learn things and that you get to live this life. I think gratitude, honestly, if I had to say one thing that changed my life the most, it is that attitude of gratitude. And I know it's kind of a cheesy saying, but I think when you can practice it does change lives, and I've seen it myself. So I think those are a few of the fundamental things, serving people, building relationships, and just being grateful for what this life brings, and whether it's good, bad, it's indifferent. We are here to learn, grow, and push. And the only way to do that is to look at everything that happens to you as an opportunity to keep going and to keep building upon what you have, and reaching new levels.
Yeah, a couple of takeaways from that segment. One, always be a resource, right? If you're trying to show up and be a resource for others, then your intentions are right. And like we talked about earlier, doing things for the right reason come back to you in more than you could ever imagine. The second, I think, is in terms of building relationships and showing up and intentionality and with empathy, right? Things are going to go wrong. Like we talked about earlier, things happen, things outside of your control, or even within your control, bad things happen. But the more that you show up, if you have a client base with intentionality and empathy, then you're setting yourself up for success to get through those bad times, right? Like it may not be the result that you wanted to. Expenses in our world may have increased at a property outside of our control, and investors aren't happy, and that stuff happens. But if you show up, you listen, you have empathy, and you try to correct the issue, then you have a better success rate, I would say. And then in terms of like the whole gratitude thing and not being able to control things, I think having accountability and realizing that you have accountability and moving forward within that recognition is also important. So kind of my three takeaways there from what you had to say. Now we've rambled on for 45 minutes about all kinds of different stuff, great things. But you're the expert in the health and wellness field. So I want to spend the last couple of minutes kind of diving into that. On your intake form, you could have talked about anything, right? You could have talked about gaining strength. You could have talked about getting your nutrition in order. You chose to talk about fat loss. Why is fat loss important to you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, honestly, I think of two things when it comes down to why that's the main person I want to serve. I mean, the first thing is I was never the person who just had an amazing looking body. I grew up as a kid, and I wouldn't call myself extremely overweight, but I was definitely like a chunkier kid, right? And I had a lot of insecurities because of that. I mean, I would go to, you hear stories of this all the time, but going to the pool and not wanting to take your shirt off, and being insecure about even being around your friends taking their shirt off because you didn't want to get made fun of, and thinking about in my athletic career, being looked at as a young age as somebody who was like, a thick boy, or something like that. Just people using phrases like that created a lot of insecurities in me. And as I got into high school, and I wanted to pursue playing college football, I said to myself, what can I do to separate myself? And that thing was nutrition. And what I fell in love with was the process of improving my body and improving my capabilities. But what I found through that was that my self-esteem was just tremendously improved. The way that I viewed myself was completely shifted, because what I saw was I am capable of creating change in my life. I am capable of creating the results that I just got. And I think when I see clients, when I talk to people and they talk about their struggles, they talk about fat loss and all the diets they've done and their insecurities, what I envisioned is the mindset shift that I had for them. And I can't tell you what that did for me. It obviously changed my life, right? It got me into this field. It got me into self-help. It got me into business. And what I see, even circling back to what we talk about, using wellness as a business strategy, I think using wellness as a strategy to improve every area of your life is the main thing. And that's what I see as a fat loss coach. And that's why I focus so much on that. It's because I want people to be happy with the way that they show up for themselves. Number one, I want them to know that they can do the things they say they're going to do. Number two, I want them to look in the mirror and say, man, I did this and I am proud of the way I look. Because I mean, you can disagree, agree. I think there's something to be said about looking good. And I think people, they want to look good because they know that it takes work. And I think that's a subconscious belief. I don't think everybody would consciously think that, but I think people admire people who put in hard work and who show up for themselves. And that is why I think it's so important for me to be able to help those people, because I figured out a process and a strategy and ways to be able to help people achieve amazing results. And I've done it myself. And if I'm not serving those people, I think that I am falling short of my purpose, and I'm not serving to the capacity that I could serve. But I can continue to talk on why I want to help people in that area. But man, I think it just changed lives. I genuinely think that it doesn't only just shift your health, but it shifts your perspective and the way that you think about life. So that's the reason for the focus on that.
Okay. You call it, goals, expectations. You can call it whatever you want, but it's what you're trying to achieve. How do you approach assisting clients with setting expectations around fat loss?
Yeah, so this is actually a hard one because a lot of people have such poor understandings of what a realistic expectation is because of diet culture. I mean, understanding that like the things that you see promoted the majority of the time and the rate at which people see success is not realistic. And it's not that it's not possible, because it's obviously possible. People do it and people get amazing results. But I think when we think through the spectrum of speed and sustainability, those things aren't generally attached. They're not generally the same thing, right? So going fast doesn't generally lead to sustainability, but going at an appropriate approach is going to lead to sustainability in a general sense, right? And I think for the expectation setting for people, it's number one, understanding where they're at. How much do they have to lose? How fast can we lose weight? If you're a bigger person, you're going to be able to lose more weight more quickly. If you don't have as much weight to lose, we don't need to lose as much as quickly as that other person, right? So where are you at? And that's going to dictate how fast we can go. And then also it's, what do you want? What point do you want to get to, right? And once we identify those 2 points, then we can attach the path to that success, right? And I think the expectation for most people is that we shouldn't aim to lose as much fat as possible in the shortest amount of time. We should focus on building the habits and the strategies that allow us to lose fat over time, and focus less on speed and more on intentionality and habits and the daily practice of what it takes to make that happen. And you're going to achieve your results, whether it takes a year or 2 years. It doesn't matter. It's about actually building the habits and the principles into your life so that way you can sustain it. Because I don't care if you lose 100 pounds, if you gain it all back. And frankly, studies show that most people, and I think it's around 90%, 80 to 90% of people gain back more weight than they lose when they go on a quote unquote diet. And that's a scary thing to even look at. So for me, I think the expectation has to be the right pace is better, but slower than fast is better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I think it was James Clear that said, you do not rise to the level of your goals or expectations. You fall to the level of your systems. A few weeks back, I think it was episode 2, I spoke with Allie Potter about outcome goals and process goals and the relation between those. Last part of the health segment, how do you ensure that your clients, who no doubt have expectations and goals, are putting the right processes in place that match with those expectations?
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, and this is a hard thing, for the person listening, if you don't have a coach, I think the first step is to get a coach if that's something that you want to invest in, number one. And I promote coaching, not because I want to make money, but because I want people to learn the strategies to lose fat, but more importantly, keep it off. So I think having a coach is the easiest way to get to that point where you don't have to question. You don't have to wonder, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to work in the long term? Get somebody to show you what has worked and what will work. And I think that's a fundamental thing. Now, when it comes down to it, outside of that, I think it comes down to principles of diet and it comes down to principles of fitness. And I think those are pretty simple. I think it's from a dietary perspective, eat quality food and fuel your body with things that you know it needs to be fueled with. That's not a sexy answer. That doesn't feel good on the day to day, because that means that you don't need to be eating donuts every day. And you know that. So I don't have to tell you that, but that needs to be the fundamental principle. Now, beyond that, there's other things within that I think are going to carry you on to success even more. And obviously, everybody knows, they see all over social media, eat a lot of protein, eat fruits and vegetables so we can get in fiber. Like, those are principles as well. And I think calorie management is always the thing that we have to revert back to and help people understand, and how that interplays, regardless if we're talking hormones or not. It's still calories. So we need to understand that. And then when it comes to a fitness and uh, just a general, understanding on things outside of diet for fat loss, it really just comes down to what can you do consistently. I don't need to sit here and talk about the perfect training split, the perfect exercise, the perfect cardio routine, because perfect for most people is just what you can show up and do day after day, week after week. So that's really what it comes down to. And I try to embody that with my coaching. I do everything custom, personalized to the person. I don't give everybody the same plan. That's because for some people, it's going to be different. For others, it's going to be the same. But you got to find something that you can show up and do consistently. And that's also a principle for your diet as well. And understanding that this is a lifestyle. This is not a short-term thing. The fat loss process may be short-term, but the practices that allow you to attain fat loss are not short-term. So I think those are the fundamental things that people have to understand. And alongside that, one other thought just came to mind. I think just general movement through the day is so underrated. Obviously, people talk about steps all the time, but just move your body. Like, it's a lot of things that people already know. And that's why I think coaching is so important, is because most people know what they need to do in order to be successful, but they don't do it, right? So I think that's where having somebody to guide you along the way and to help you understand the changes in a practical and applicable way for you is life-changing. So that's my mindset on it.
Yeah, and it's kind of how I look at reading too, right? Like, when was the last time that I read a self-help book or a business book that taught me something new? It's probably been a while, but it's reframing it in a different manner and just a good reminder, right? Which is what a coach can do. It can reframe it for you and just hold you accountable and keep reminding you of where you are, where you want to be, and the path that it takes to get there. Jonathan, man, this has been fantastic. Thanks for sharing your journey and your struggles, and just talking through some of these things. Before we sign off, two things actually. What advice would you give to those that are trying to break into the health and wellness space? Number one, and then two, like in most things, we now have a plethora of information at our fingertips, and it can be difficult for those that are trying to start a new journey to fight through the noise. How would you recommend, fighting through all of that nonsense to get to the information that is applicable to someone trying to start a new journey?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes down to the first aspect, just getting into health and fitness and making that step, I think the most practical thing to do is just start small. Don't go overboard with it. I'm all about going all in, and I'm all about, completely shifting your life. But things don't stick when you throw 1,000 things at it at once, because then you're not going to know what works. Then you're not going to know what actually is happening, and leading to results. So start small, start with little changes, whether that's going on more walks, whether that's showing up to the gym for 20 minutes instead of an hour, and just building the consistency. So show up small, and just build consistency, because that's what's going to allow you to see success. And I tell my clients this all the time. Half of the things that we do in health and fitness, we can focus on numbers, but the numbers aren't what really matter. It's about the intentionality behind the numbers. It's about what you are having to do to reach those numbers. So if it's 10,000 steps, it's not the 10,000 steps. It's the intentionality to get to 10,000 steps. If it's 2,500 calories for you, yeah, that helps you get into a calorie deficit, but it's the intentionality behind eating quality food and hitting your protein and managing your calories. It's intentionality. So start small, focus on intention, and that's going to propel you forward. Now, when it comes to your other question, what exactly was your other question? I forgot.
No, you're good. I threw two at you one time, so that's on me. The second question would be, how do we fight through the noise, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
we want to get into this stuff. You want to make a change in your life, or you want to start a business, or whatever it might be. You go on the internet, and it's just so much stuff gets thrown at you. So many opinions get thrown at you. How do you fight through that and find the information that actually matters?
Yeah, so I think the first step to that is do your own research. And what I mean by that is don't just trust something that you see on social media. And I talk about this a lot with people is that there are a lot of people who are really freaking smart, but promote some really stupid stuff. And they even promote some good stuff, but then they throw in some stuff that is just not worth even worrying about, or it's completely false or a lie. So do your own research. If you hear something and you're like, that sounds really interesting, I want to try that, go to Google, look up some studies, read the abstract, read the conclusion, and try to find out what is the reality of that thing. Because a lot of social media is trying to get views, trying to get people to follow, trying to get people to buy their product. So do your own research. And then number two is find people that you trust and follow their advice to the end, right? And for me, I have a few people that I'll follow that I'm like, you know what, these people are 100%, they are not going to lie to me. You have to be able to trust the integrity of that person. And I think that we can loop all the way back to the beginning of the conversation talking about building a connection, but um, find the person that you feel like they have integrity, feel like they are not going, they would not lie to you, and make that person your go-to source of information. And I think about that for me. If you know who Lane Norton is, that's the person I go to when I'm like, okay, what is the reality of this thing? Because I know that he's going to go to science. I know that he is going to give me the information that is based off of what we see in studies and not just anecdote or concepts, right? So find somebody you trust and somebody who you think has integrity, and follow that person, and make sure you're even with that person doing your own research and trying to figure out what is actually true, because man, it is hard. I know that for sure.
Well, on that note, how can people find you or get more information if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so Instagram is where I primarily post. I do a little TikTok, but on Instagram, it's Lutz Jonathan _ You can go there, click the link in my bio if you want to check out my website or my podcast. All the links are there. Make sure to feel free to DM me. I tell people this all the time. I think a lot of people are hesitant to actually message and ask questions. Like, I'm not going to try to sell you if you have questions. Just ask me questions. I genuinely want to help. Like I said, my goal is to serve people. So Instagram's the best place, and then all my links are in my bio.
Awesome, man. Well, we could have went on a plethora of different tangents on that. We kept it relatively focused, so I probably have you to thank for that. And thanks for all the knowledge, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say one thing, man. I'm so pumped that you're doing this. Something I always try to focus on with my life is practicing what I preach. And when I saw you were doing this, is like, man, I'm going to help him promote this as much as I can. I'm going to make sure I'm commenting and liking on his stuff, because I know the game's hard. I know it's not easy. It can be hard when your views are low, when you're not getting a lot of likes and shares and things. And I'll say to everybody listening too, like, support Jarrod in this. I know he's not going to say it, but like, it's not an easy thing to do. So show up for people. Like, literally, just go share his thing. It's going to help more than you understand. Drop a like, even if it's not as important to you as you think it is to him. Like, it's genuinely going to help him. I promise you that. So I just wanted to say that, because I don't think enough people in whatever thing they're trying to do promote their thing enough. But guys, go help Jarrod in this, because it's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, man, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And in preparation for this, I then found your podcast, which I've listened to quite a few of the episodes now. And you've got a new listener here. So you have my support as well. And just appreciate you coming on.